Welcome to What the Hype. And this week, grab your box of tissues and assemble all of the feels, because this week we're offering a spoiler-free review of the new season of Heartstopper, which just premiered on Netflix. Eric and Pam are here this week. Hello, Eric and Pam.
Hi.
Oh. And returning to the podcast is Pat, who was with us for our first Heartstopper episode. So welcome back, Pat.
Yay, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, of course. And before we get started, don't forget to follow What the Hype online. Hit follow or subscribe in your favorite podcast and social media apps. To do that, just search for What the Hype and visit whatthehypepodcast.com for more about the show and to find a full list of social media links. And this, like I said, is our second episode of Heartstopper, so be sure to check out our last one, which was released in June, in which we explained why it's worthy of hype. And just a brief reminder, very brief, in case you haven't listened to part one of our Heartstopper series, this is an LGBTQ coming-of-age story. It's set in England, and it's based on graphic novels written and illustrated by Alice Oseman. Let's kick things off with our overall thoughts on Season 3. Pat, as the guest of honor, do you want to go first? Sorry, Pam.
It's okay.
You're a guest of honor too, though.
I loved it. I think the series is holding up exactly as the first two seasons are, with how loyal it is to the series. So for myself, because I'm slightly crazy, I watched all of it in one sitting. We started it a little after 8, so I did not finish it on the night it dropped until almost 1 a.m. and then went to work the next day.
Yeah, and I went to bed after the first 2 episodes, and, I'm trying to fall asleep, and, every half hour or so I woke up hearing the TV downstairs. I'm like, he's still up? He's still up? The night goes on. He's still up? I was worried about you.
All this indie music, Pat. We need an intervention.
No, I just didn't even though I've read the comics, I also didn't want spoilers for seeing it because I hadn't hit anything on my timelines to not have spoilers. So I just wanted to make sure I finished it, and I'm addicted, so it's fine.
But now you've gone through the source material how many times?
3.
Yeah. So were you that concerned about spoilers?
No, just the visual spoilers, just because I love the cast so much.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see anything that I couldn't experience visually rather than in my visual imagination.
Yeah, I get it. If you see the right GIF set, you're now that's going to take the wind out of the sails of seeing
Exactly.
it.
Well, Pam, Eric, what did you think? And Eric, I know you've watched 4 episodes, and
I've watched half. I had to stop after halfway through season 3. There was a very meaningful episode. What I would say from a non-spoiler sense is that throughout the first season and season 2, we're seeing Charlie and Nick's relationship, and we're, all the angles as Nick come to terms with his sexuality, as each of the boys navigate the other, coming out, being out as a couple, the trips, telling the family. There was this beautiful trajectory. And then it wasn't until the beginning of this season, of season 3, was maybe 2 episodes in, right around where you left off, Andrew, and I'm thinking, oh wait, I'm now so involved in these boys' relationship, and now it's uncomfortable, and I can't get out. Help, trap. They're about to hit a crisis, and now I'm so far in and invested that I can't escape. I was trying to run for the door, but Netflix was you want to watch the next one? I was I'd rather just run away and never return. So it's highs and lows. And what I will appreciate about season 3, and I was reading generally some summary thoughts, as I always do when something's out. It's taking on a slightly more mature tone. It's really facing something head on, using the goodwill that it's built up. I think that the show's built up, and as well as the same level-headed approach of having a great cast of characters that are going to navigate the toughest waters.
Yeah, and I think, you talked about Netflix encouraging you to continue on to the next episode. at some point in the last few weeks, the time you have to stop Netflix from advancing to the next episode has gotten shorter. It used to be like 10 seconds. Now it's like 4 seconds. So you got to have that remote ready to go.
Yeah.
And now you're probably saying the same thing. Now it's showing like 2 episodes to go, 1 episode to go, like when you're near the end, which is also why I kept watching. That
stresses me out.
Don't stop. Don't stop, Pam.
To go.
I was like, no, only 1 more episode. Why?
But yeah, I think it is tackling more adult topics in season 3. Pam, what did you think of the season?
I also watched it pretty much all the way through. So clearly there's 2 kinds of people. It's funny that Eric said they needed to take a break, because after I got to episode 4, I was like, I need to keep watching so I can end on a lighter note before I go to bed. So that was my
That's a good way to look at it too.
Yeah, it was very like glass half full, glass half empty. What do I want to sit with as I lay awake in the darkness?
I just didn't trust that it was going to be all upward trends from episode 4.
Fair.
I was like, oh, I'm already broken in a way I didn't expect
totally
to be broken.
fair.
So I need time away.
So after season 1, I read through all the comics that were out. And so I think that it is like this season tonally is so different, because I think that like the one criticism some people have of Heartstopper, especially the first season, is that it's too happy. Like everything kind of works out. Like it's almost like too nice of a world.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of feels that way in the comics too, until you get to the point where they start tackling this very real issue of mental health, among other things. But that's like the big bombshell. And it also kind of I felt like it came out of nowhere in the comics. I was like way more prepared for it on the show, because I think they did a better job of like teasing it on the nose. So yeah, but like tonally, like way different from the first 2 seasons. So it's been interesting to see people's reactions. I think they did a pretty good job. There were a couple of things on the back end where I kind of felt like they ran out of time to extrapolate on certain storylines. But other than that, I think it was a solid season and a nice shift too, because you don't want to give your audience too much of the same thing. You want to keep them coming back. And so I think if they hadn't have figured out how to flip the script in a way that gave people something else to sink their teeth into, it might have fallen a little bit flat for even viewers that like don't have any reference point to the graphic novel source material.
Yeah. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this season. I wonder how much more runway this series has overall. I know, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, there's 1 more, Pat, or 2 more graphic novels to be adapted.
Wow.
But I just feel like at some point, I hope this series doesn't try to push it too far in terms of like expanding beyond the graphic novels, because
we haven't come out to our grandparents yet. Let's go. Let's get in the car. There's still people we need to tell.
Well, this is a coming of age, coming out story, but how many times does the coming out story need to be told in this world? And I mean, the whole coming out story is such a common trope in LGBTQ novels, and that's fine, but we just don't need this over and over again in a single show, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'll say about why I like that it pivoted in season 3, is that you've established your cast of characters, you've established they're really good friends now, and you've watched them support each other through their coming out. So the Heartstoppers, I wouldn't call it like too happy or too twee. There are problems, but they do get solved because you have a good group of friends. But now put them in a situation where they're strained from a different angle. And that to me felt like, or feels currently, because I'm still in the middle of it, like the right choice, because you get to see and kind of really be like, oh yeah, right. These friends, you can have multiple challenges and have these friends still be good to each other, or to talk to each other about what's lacking. And it feels more organic as a result of, I think, this direction.
Yeah. So in terms of what's new in this season compared to the past 2 seasons, we've been talking about it a little bit, but Pat, anything else you want to add on in terms of what's new in this season or in this graphic novel?
I mean, if we're going based off of the graphic novels, like I said, they do a very, very good job of just staying so loyal to it. Like some of the time is a little bit stretched out or moved around a little bit. I think this season probably covers the most time compared to the first two, because the first two seasons are less than a year. This one, we definitely jump, and now we're like through a decent amount of time in their relationship. The only really thing that I think Alice is starting to like expand some characters a little too much, more than we need to. We have that core group of 6. I don't think we really need to expand beyond them, but we are.
There are a lot
bit,
of
which
characters.
is fine.
Who are you sick of, Pat? I need to know the tea. What's the tea? Who don't you want to see on?
Like, I love Imogen, but I don't need her. I don't need her to have a full like story. I like her just being an auxiliary character, and that's it. And
Sure.
I think a part of that is she's not in the comics, so I think that's part of it too. Sahar is, but Imogen is not.
Okay, and Isaac is not in the comics.
No, Isaac is a different character in the comics.
Okay, because I find Isaac quite charming.
Yes.
And I was surprised to learn that he wasn't part of the comics.
I would take more of Isaac's story before I would take more of Imogen's. And I think that's the issue that, so I agree with you, Pat, that choosing to focus on Imogen, especially in the back half of the season, it takes up airtime. You only have so much time, but I think it would be because Isaac is the only ace character they have. It would be more interesting if they're really trying to hit on the whole, queer alphabet for them to spend some more time on him. And I feel like it's actually kind of sad that his friends kind of set him aside a lot. Like he feels really lonely. And I think that if they had done like a bottle episode just following him, that would have been really interesting. And maybe they will do that in the next season.
Yeah, the trip to the aquarium solved that for me, because he's able to tell them how he feels, and they all are kind of like, oh yeah, we've been treating you like garbage. But just being paired up for somebody that's aromantic and asexual, it's like I did feel like the show took its time to like kind of give him his moment. But my understanding is that there's another ace or aromantic character that has not been introduced as such on this show, but she has been a big part of this season, which is Charlie's sister, right? Tori.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is the show dealing with the arrow ace stuff through the lens of Isaac because they're not yet ready to talk about Tori? What's sort of your take on that?
I have, obviously, because I'm addicted to this show, I've been reading a lot of every article that comes out. So I did read an interview with Alice. So she went into about how like it was in the script a little more, but they decided that there wasn't a way to really dive into it without it being very abrupt. Mm-hmm. So it will probably be addressed more in season 4 to go along like with that story. We just didn't have enough time with Tori and Michael.
Until this season, Tori wasn't even, she would just be in the room. And I know it's a joke. I know Charlie's like, where'd you come from? But I'm like, who is she? What are her wants and needs? When we were all on the first episode together, and you were like, oh yeah, it started off with this whole book about Tori. I'm like, what is there to say about Tori? She's not in the show at all. This season at least showed her concerned for her brother, reaching out to Nick, talking about his friends, standing up for them in front of her parents. Totally interesting, fully developing character.
I like those aspects of her character. I don't like how miserable she is. She's such a Debbie Downer in every scene.
Yeah.
Is she on the spectrum, like in canon? Is that part of her story?
No.
Okay. Because I almost kind of felt like that's what they were hinting at on the show, because she is like socially unaware almost. And
when I read Solitaire, I think like both her and Charlie have different mental illnesses that they are dealing with. Solitaire, you really, really dive in. It is her story, truly her story. We get a little bit of Solitaire in this season, like with episode 4 and 5. So I do think like there's a chance maybe in the future they could do, I know fans want a spin-off, even if it's a standalone movie or a standalone short series of Solitaire. The only issue with that is that we would be going back in time from the story where we're at now. So it would be strange, but I do think from what I read in the interview and stuff, Alice does have a plan to follow through with Tori the way that she is written.
Cool.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk more about the season and look ahead at season 4. We'll be right back. So I just want to throw something out there that struck me after watching episode 7. Why don't these kids have locks on their doors? They're kids. Why can anybody
That's
just
probably
bust
why
in?
They don't have locks on their doors.
Is that a thing over in England? No locks on the doors?
Yeah, man, it's another world over there.
No locks on the front doors because it's safer over there, and no locks on
You're
the
not going to get.
bedroom
Nobody's going to break in
either.
and shoot you because there are no guns.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's why. But the kids, man, I always had my door locked as a kid. Didn't you? 3?
I wasn't allowed to.
You weren't.
I didn't even have a lock on my door.
Eric, did you have a lock on your door?
Bedroom door? Yeah, there was a lock on it. But I'm gleefully remembering this one time when my sister overused her lock and my parents took it inside out so that they could lock her in her room instead.
Well, like ours just had the little punch button. So on the other side was just that little hole you would stick a pin in to unlock it.
Yeah, you could get a pin through.
Well, yeah, but there was still a barrier to prevent your parents from busting in. And yeah, of course, like my parents too had that little thing they could put in to force it open. But in the situations that we see in Heartstopper, that simple push lock would have done the trick.
Everybody's getting walked in on is what you're saying, right?
Yes. So lock the door.
Now I understand.
I'm not saying deadbolt the childhood bedrooms. I'm just saying, put a little barrier up.
It's literally like, door open at all times, no funny business, kind of thing.
Pat, was there anything else that stood out to you in season 3 that you really enjoyed, maybe particularly as a reader of the graphic novels?
I really love seeing the characters kind of in their own moments and seeing the couples outside of being a couple. Like just seeing moments where like Charlie and Nick are not together, or Darcy is like they're not together. Tao and Elle aren't together in certain moments in certain scenes. I like seeing them just outside of it so that they can like discuss their relationship in something like in the novel that we don't really see. So it's nice to like see those characters expanded in that way a little bit more.
So we're getting more from the TV series than we did the graphic novels, you would say?
Yeah, just because the graphic novels do focus like solely on Charlie and Nick. There is rarely a scene outside of them unless they're like the little mini comics in the back of the novels.
That's really interesting. So Alice, who also wrote the screenplays for the TV series, right? She felt the need to expand the world as well and tell the stories of these other characters. Yeah,
like fill it out more.
It creates something really lovely. Like I quite love this show, partly for the soundtrack, of course, but also because it does feel like a family, like an entire family of friends. And as Pam mentioned too, like they're getting a lot of representation on the LGBT alphabet. If it focused solely on Charlie and Nick, we would not, I think, to get the level of representation I'm enjoying.
Does that strike any of y'all as unrealistic? I mean, I know this is fiction anyway, but is it almost like too on the nose?
Like if in season 2,
gotta catch them all. Yeah.
Like if in season 2, 2 of the characters were like, we have a gay friend and we have a black friend, but we don't have a gay black friend. And then in season 3, it's like, hey everybody, I'm the new gay black friend. It's like, oh god.
I'm glad all of these different types of people are getting screen time and these characters are appearing, but all in one series. To me, it just kind of pushes over the edge of like suspending my disbelief.
Well, I would divert to like the three of you as members of that community. Like when you look at friend groups, do you see it as diverse as that? Or do people tend to stick with their own orientation when they're looking for friends?
My friend group is more gay than Heartstopper.
Okay,
I think the unrealistic part to me is that they're all in the same school.
Well, here's my counterpoint, Andrew. What if gays and LGBT people in general have been so underrepresented in every other show ever made?
True, yeah. And I think us as adults, as life goes on, we find our chosen family, we meet new people through whatever experiences in life we may have.
The new generation is doing that sooner.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, my class in high school was 350 kids. I'm sure, like, if you really put everybody together, like, it would have a group like this now. But back in 2007, no. But now, there might be.
Okay.
I mean, one of my younger cousins has gone through everything trying to figure out her sexuality. Like, for a while she was a lesbian, for a while she was non-binary, for a while she's trying to figure it out, and she's come to herself, and she truly knows, like, where she's at now.
And that makes sense, because I think that we exist now in a world where there's more access to knowledge, and there have never been more ways to label yourself, right? And there's never been so much information out there for you to explore what really feels like it fits, what feels like fits you. So I think that that's an advantage that the younger generation does have, which is that the information is at their fingertips, and Heartstopper kind of shows that too. I mean, Nick taking a BuzzFeed, like, am I gay quiz. Like, it sounds dumb, but, like, I'm sure there are a lot of kids that Google, like, how do I know if I'm this?
And I think, as we spoke about on our last Heartstopper episode, TV shows like this too help younger people discover who they really are. Whereas we didn't have these types of shows, certainly not as many as we do now, back when we were kids.
Yeah.
And that's why also, like, the show taking a bold swing and changing up its subject matter a little this season also rides the horse into the sunset of, like, continuing to push, like, the envelope, continuing to represent sort of all types of people and certain disorders in a new way that they haven't really been tackled before.
So looking at season 4, Pat, are those episodes expected to cover graphic novel 4 and just 4?
No. So we're up to 5 now. Everything that has been in the 3 seasons is now published.
Wow.
Okay.
So as of right now, we don't really have an idea of what season 4 will be, because the volume 6 will be the last volume in the graphic novel series. And then we do have right now, there is a novella that is out. That's Nick and Charlie. That is in the future. So season 4 should cover whatever volume 6 is, and then Nick and Charlie.
Wow.
And we don't know when graphic novel 6 is coming, right?
Correct. So right now, in the most recent interview I read, she only has about, like, 50 pages drawn, and usually each volume is usually around, like, 300 pages.
Oh, wow.
So she has already said she's already stressed out, because she's going to be drawing it's all written, just not all drawn. So she has the story plotted out. She just needs to draw it, while she's also going to be starting to write season 4. We still don't have solid knowledge if it's been picked up yet. But with all the ratings and everything, I mean, all 3 seasons have started out with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I still think it's up at, like, 97%. So, like, it's still really high up there. Netflix, I think, would be stupid if they dropped it, but also with the fan base, I think another platform will pick it up in a heartbeat.
There's a pun somewhere about Heartstopper and Heartbeat, but I
was trying to think of it.
If Netflix stops the heart,
stops the heart, yeah.
Max will keep it beating.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, if they only have one more season to go, it does seem really silly, given how popular it seems to be, for them to cancel it. Yeah, I know. There have been surprises, but Heartstopper also has to be one of their cheaper shows to produce. It's not CGI heavy, so that has to be working in their favor as well. Plus, the episodes are only a half hour, and there's 8 episodes a season. So
yeah,
I think
Alice has said since the beginning, she can tell the story in 4 seasons. So that's really, I think it'll stop there.
I just do not envy Alice if she has to finish the graphic novel, write the season, and do this quickly enough wherein the children actors don't grow up too fast. I mean, she's kind of on the clock here.
Well, they were never children to begin with, and
yeah.
I mean, they were close in the beginning. They were
Maybe.
still
I
under
think-
18 in the beginning.
I
Very
think it's
beginning.
mostly like you got to make sure you get them in before they're too booked and busy, because
Yeah.
you're starting to see a lot of this cast do bigger and bigger things, which is great. But that also
like
means
Joe
that
Locke
it's
is in
hard
Marvel
to
now.
schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Olivia Colman couldn't appear in season 3 because she was busy, which was a crying shame because she was so good in the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
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 We got
she was
Haley
great.
Atwell, though.
Yes, that was a nice
she was
trade-off.
really good.
I feel like we've touched on most of these other points. Anything else y'all want to address about Heartstopper? I thought we could just make some recommendations to wrap it up, but other than that,
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I think the music, obviously, because we did focus on music quite a bit in the last episode. The music is still great. This one, the style, I think, is definitely different. There's a little bit more like techno-y and stuff just because there are a few party scenes.
yeah, I heard it
Stuff
through
like
our
that.
ceiling when I was trying to sleep the night you were binge watching
Feel
all
that
of it on a
bass.
school night.
It's another
Yeah,
party.
I almost turned it down for my phone. It was so loud.
Oh, whatever.
Oh, I've yet to hear about couples fighting when they both control the Apple Home. I've never thought about that.
The nice thing
before.
about Sonos speakers is I can turn down the TV when I'm not in the room, and I have
That's
done it
like-
before.
Pat's like, why is the bass out?
Right. But yeah, I've been listening to the official playlist, although Spotify is on my list because they rearranged the season order, and season 2 is not in order of the episodes anymore, and it's
What?
really making me angry.
How
But
dare
anyway,
they?
I know
Yeah.
this season is still in order, so that's fine. It does. I don't, Pam, do you agree? The music is slightly, it's not as, I don't know. There's something different about it. Like a little bit too mainstreamy, maybe.
I would say like it's a little it's a little less indie pop. It's not, I don't think it's like as gay as it was the first
Yes.
2 seasons, which is like not bad, but they definitely did play with you know, kind of like putting some different sorts of sounds in there, like you said. Like they had like an Olivia Dean song, which I love in there, called Dive, but I wasn't expecting that. And
Right.
then like I loved the like the inclusion of like Del Water Gap with "Oh, to a Conversation Stuck in Your Throat," but I also wasn't expecting that, or the Olivia Rodrigo, you know, and it just some of it
Troye
kind of felt
Sivan
like
showing up in it too.
yeah, like Olivia
Like-
felt like that was like the most jarring, but like the rest of it was like, oh, this is interesting from like a tonal aspect.
Yeah, I'm glad you two brought that up because I was just watching episode 7 before recording, and their first sex scene has Del Water Gap's "Ode to a Conversation Stuck
Conversation
in Your Throat."
stuck in your throat. Yeah.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, because I was blasting it. I was blasting Netflix while you were talking. But I was like, wait, that's a really recognizable song for Heartstopper.
Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah.
But do you love it in the context of Heartstopper when it's always been more
I
indie
actually
pop?
don't love it for that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because like that song is like about yearning, and then you get to the bridge and it's like a confession. So they should have really, if they wanted to use that, it would have been perfect to use in season 1 before they had like realized their feelings. I definitely would have picked something that was a little bit more honestly, like Dive would have worked better, which is weird because like it wouldn't have, but like substantially it fits more of like a first time sex scene than
So
a
much of
conversation stuck in your throat does.
These tracks, I think I'm finally hip now, and I have my girlfriend to thank, but because some of these tracks have been on my Spotify Wrapped every year
For a long time,
like-
me too. Yeah.
yeah, like some Wolf Alice, Lucy Dacus.
Yeah.
Let's see, even some Let's Eat Grandma still comes on my day list. Caroline Rose, Cry by Caroline Rose. I heard that bass line and I was like, oh wow, I know this. It's unbelievable to see it represented on a much younger person's show.
Yeah. So I thought for people who have now finished Heartstopper, and it clearly sounds like we're going to be waiting a while for season 4 and maybe waiting a while for volume 6 of the graphic novels, what should fans read and watch next? Pat, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, I have not watched it personally, but even the cast jokes about it because I think they started around the same time, but Young Royals is apparently a very like queer Netflix show as well. The cast, even like I watched an interview where they're like, and let's introduce ourselves. We're the cast of Young Royals. It's like when it's all the Heartstopper kids. So I think it's just like same vein of everything. And then it's over now, ended a couple of years ago, but Love Victor is fairly similar if you want that same kind of vibe of like a, young coming out story.
Okay. So I've been reading some LGBTQ books recently. First and foremost, want to plug Casey McQuiston's The Pairing. She wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue, which was, of course, adapted into a movie for Amazon, and they're going to be doing a sequel for Amazon too. The book is way better, by the way, than the movie. Please read the book over the movie.
Fully agree.
But The Pairing, there's a bisexual element to it. There's a non-binary element to it as well. And it's kind of like this summer in Europe romance. It's really detailed, and Casey did a great job of describing Europe and the various countries that they visit on this food tour. It's like impressively detailed. So I would recommend that if you enjoyed Red, White, and Royal Blue. And then couple others I've read recently. Lie With Me. This is a French coming of age novel. Yeah, Book Talk recommended it to me. It was
really good. Yeah.
And Interesting Facts About Space. This is actually a lesbian novel that came up in a book club that Pat and I are in. As the title might hint for you, a big science aspect to it as well.
I just love this, the queer lit. I got a book I haven't seen or heard of before, Nevada. Imogen Benny.
I live in that state.
I know, it's an ode to you guys. Maybe this book is about you. No, but that's my reading of genderqueer recently got me interested in the Amazon is recommending all these other books. So I'm going to start reading queer lit too. As far as shows, if you want something that's more harrowing, more adult, and even gayer, Sense8 was canceled by Netflix after 2 seasons, but and I've only watched the first one because my heart can't take it. But Sense8 is really just doing amazing stuff with the characters and how interconnected everyone is, how gender is a spectrum. It's a whole thing. And so that gets my highest recommendation for this episode.
As much as I love Heartstopper, Sense8, I fully believe is Netflix's best show they've ever made. Hands down, in my opinion. I love that show.
Eric, we were actually talking about genderqueer last week, and I don't know if you noticed, but in one of the first episodes of this season of Heartstopper, somebody's reading genderqueer.
I think
it's Isaac. Yeah,
I think it's Isaac. Yeah, I recognize it.
I thought of you when I saw that. Oh, Nick.
Thank you.
Maybe it was Nick. I thought that was funny because like we had just talked about it, and we were going to talk about Heartstopper this week, so kind of 100%. A funny coincidence.
I was like, I think I said to Meg, like, that's happened, and she's like, what's going to be next? Like, what's the next? And I said, it's what fan conventions we're talking about. It's like, okay, she's like, well, somebody's going to be cosplaying as the Heartstopper people at the next cosplay event. There's like something. I'm like, oh God, the cycle continues. But yeah, it's wonderful.
This is not a queer show specifically, but there is queer representation in the show. I wanted to recommend My Mad Fat Diary. And this is a show that came out, I think, in 2013. So it's fully wrapped up. It's just 3 seasons. It was a Channel 4 show. So it is British, and it does take place in the UK, but it takes place in the 90s. I wanted to recommend it specifically for the mental health aspect because that's such a big theme in this 3rd season of Heartstopper. My Mad Fat Diary is probably like one of the best portrayals of like therapy and like dealing with disordered eating that I've ever seen on screen. The characters are all super charming. It is a coming of age story as well. And so you have like the friend group element to it as well. And there's even like some doodles, which is like, I know that's like a dumb thing, but it's like, I think that like tonally, it kind of like, is a nice little like dramedy. So you get like these darker moments, but the comedy really kind of splices through and makes this, a really heartwarming watch. So if you haven't checked this out yet, I would highly recommend it. I feel like everybody that stumbles across this show tends to love it a lot. And I just want more people to watch it. So I wanted to recommend that.
That sounds great.
Awesome. Well, I think we're going to keep our listeners busy over the next few months and maybe years to come as we await Heartstopper Season 4 and Volume 6. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to follow us in your favorite podcast and social media apps. And follow us on YouTube for full video episodes. And leave us a review and comment everywhere. We read it all, and we really appreciate all of the feedback. And that is the hype around Heartstopper. Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Pat, for joining us today.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.